Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our September second session in September. All right, let's take a little, let's do a little visualization just to get us into the mood and get us into the right meditative and consciousness state. So just close your eyes for a minute and become absolutely still. And link up as a group by sending a radiant ray of light to the ajna of all the group members. Just take 1 minute to do this. Now raise your consciousness as high as you can in the head. Endeavor then to hold steady, holding the mind unwaveringly in the group light. And now realize that DK is also standing on the other side of the veil. He's standing steady and strong, ready to pour his love and strength, and endeavoring to lift us up into a higher state of consciousness. And I visualize ahead of us a disc or a sphere of indigo blue and a deep indigo blue. And now imagine DK standing in the center of this disc, waiting. And I see a golden band of light between us and the disc, gradually shortening, thus bringing us closer and closer together, slowly and steadily, until we enter into the heart of the blue disc. And let us sound a blue Om. Now knowing that we are, at least imaginatively, in DK's presence. So let's continue our study. Before I mention the title for today, which is The Importance of Visualization, I'd like to emphasize the point. Now, if you remember last session, DK said to us that he was not interested in training individuals in order to make them more efficient healers, but it was group healing at which he was aiming. So it was the work which is done in formation which interested him at this time. But I'd like to mention a point, though, that even though we may not be able to sit together at an appointed time in the same room, physically in the same room, and DK realizes that it's not always possible to meet and work together in group formation. But what's important is that we realize that we can still do this work efficiently and potently if the members of the group work as a subjective group. Individually, each follows then the instructions each day, each time he sits to send healing, as if he was working in his group on the physical plane. So from the physical point of view, the healer will work alone. But from the true inner standpoint, the healers will be working in the closest cooperation. So all we have to do is to imagine ourselves being in the presence of the other healers. And how it works is that the group energy of the souls augments that of the healer who's working on the physical plane on his own, but who is the physical outlet for the group's energy. And then the healer then directs the group soul energy to the patient or to the patients. So working together on the subjective level. Again, let's quickly revise. Why does DK put so much emphasis on the group? It's because we're entering the age of Aquarius, if you remember, where the concept of the individual merging with his group is absolutely primordial. Therefore, group spirit, group objectives, group service, group sacrifice is the basic mode. And DK was telling us that there was a change in hierarchical methods. The methods of training one individual here and there is gone. So as the new age approaches, then group preparation, group initiation, and group acceptance will supersede the older methods. 2, because we work with the soul, soul healing is all about sending the energy from soul to soul, because from its very nature, the soul is conscious in 3 directions. It is God conscious, it is group conscious, and it is self-conscious. And 3, the healers are encouraged to practice Rule 2, Esoteric Healing Rule 2, diligently. It's aimed at linking the 3 etheric head centers needed to bring down soul energy. And we'll develop and discuss this point a little bit later in the session today. Now, why is hierarchy forced to work with groups? Because it's rare to have these 3 head centers simultaneously active. And these 3 are the crown chakra, the ajna, and the altar major. It is very rare to find one disciple with all 3 centers simultaneously active. So that's why hierarchy needs to work with large groups before the quota of energy supplied to them for the accomplishment of their aim measures up to that's what's necessitated. Therefore, the group crown chakra, the group ajna, and the group alta major need to be able to work simultaneously together. So, therefore, let's discuss, therefore, Rule 2. But again, before that, we need to understand the importance of visualization. Visualization is the secret of all true meditation work, at least in its earlier stage. It's the very first stage that needs to be mastered. And that's why we need to put the emphasis on this process. And all new processes in meditation techniques must and will embody visualization as a primary step. Why is that so? Because visualization is the initial step in the demonstration of the law energy follows thought. Pictorial visualization is simply an exercise to bring about that power to visualize. The visualizing of pictures is intended to focus the aspirant within the head at a midway point between the pineal gland and the pituitary body. Just here where they both intersect, because there is like a magnetic vibration between the two that's set up. And the visualization then focuses, the pictures focuses the disciple right there at the center, at the intersection of these two. So the focused thought produced by the vitalization sets up a magnetic field around the pineal gland, resulting in the pineal gland being stimulated. Then energy focused around, then the energy is focused around the stimulated pineal gland and is then intended to be directed with intention consciously to one of the centers. But the pineal gland becomes then the center of the magnetic field, which is set in motion in the first place by the power of visualization. And as you know, the pineal gland is the seat or the concretization of the crown chakra, which is the seat of the soul. 2, the power to visualize is the form building aspect of the creative imagination. So, the process of visualization falls into 3 parts. First, we gather the energy. 2, we focus it with intention around the pineal gland. And 3, we distribute this focused energy by means of pictorial process, not by a will, not an act of will, but through pictures, then in any direction that is to certain centers. And this focused thought produces inevitable effects within the etheric body. So let's have a look in detail now. 1, we gather the energy of love. And remembering in our previous sessions, DK always recommends that we work in the head center, nowhere else. Otherwise, we overstimulate the rest of the centers. So we always work in the head. So we gather the energy of love in the head. 2, we focus the energy with intention around the pineal gland in the head area. 3, we distribute the energy in pictorial form towards the heart center of our patients. This is one of the most important ways in which a master works. So therefore it is essential, DK tells us, that we begin to master this technique, and it constitutes one of the major healing techniques in the future. What's DK's recommendation? Is that this visualizing process and the use of the creative imagination form the first two steps in the activity of thought form building. Therefore, my disciples, he says, it is essential that you begin with deliberation and slowly work in this manner, and to use the above information constructively and creatively. So the faculty of imagination and the power of visualization should be emphasized in any healing group. And the ability should be developed to send streams of energy to the patient and to the area in the patient's body where the trouble lies, meaning in the etheric body, because the occultist does not work with a physical body at all. What he means here, the area, meaning in the etheric area where the trouble lies. So let's have a look at rule 2. But before we look at rule 2, we need to understand the distinction between a law and a rule. So what is a law? A law is a principle that we understand and that we work with. For example, if we use the analogy of a plane, engineers have to understand and master the laws of aeronautics before they can fly an aircraft successfully. They cannot change the laws of nature, so they have to work with them. So the laws are imposed then upon the healer. They provide the absolute unalterable conditions under which he must work. So he may not and he can't evade these laws. Here we're talking about such as the laws of karma or the laws of healing and the laws of the soul, etc. So what is a rule then? The rule is the practical application of the law. And again, if we use our analogy, engineers therefore apply the principles of aeronautics when building an aircraft. So there are 6 rules in esoteric healing that we must impose upon ourselves and that we must obey through discipline, application, and understanding. So why are the rules important? Because when laws and rules are not fully understood or applied correctly, disaster awaits. So laws must be understood. Healers must understand the process of stepping down the energy of the soul, whereas rules need to be applied practically, applied diligently, consistently, and with discipline. And these rules, however, the healer must impose upon himself, and they constitute the conditions which he is advised to follow if he seeks success. So therefore, much depends upon his understanding of the rules and his ability to interpret it correctly. So, rule 2 is the very first one that we will apply. The rule states that the healer must achieve magnetic purity through purity of life. He must attain this dispelling radiance, which shows itself in every man when he has linked the centers in the head. When this magnetic field is established, the radiation then goes forth. Now, rule 2, when applied to Aryan times, which is now, that means that the healer must link the 3 centers in the head. That's what he means by he has linked the centers in the head. These are the three centers: the crown, the ajna, and the alta major. A magnetic field is set up, soul energy radiates, and the healer uses the ajna center to direct the dispelling radiance. So what are the three centers and their corresponding glands? They are the crown, ajna, and the alta major, and the corresponding gland of the crown is the pineal gland, of the ajna it's the pituitary body, and of the alta major it's the carotid gland. So let's simplify that rule 2 for us so that we can understand these the steps, the process. So the healer must link up the three centers in the head: crown, ajna, alta major. A magnetic field is set up between these three as they vibrate and enter in each other's vibration. The healer uses the ajna center then to direct that soul radiance or the dispelling radiance. And why is it important to have three centers? Because it is very important to understand the triplicity, the importance of the trinity of manifestation. DK tells us that every triangle is an expression of the fundamental energy and of two secondary forces. And this is a statement of basic importance. So first, we've got the emanating point, which is the positive, the outgoing point. Then, directly opposite is the receptive point. Sometimes, or very often, DK calls it negative. And I think we mentioned that earlier in earlier sessions. So it's not negative in the same sense as we know it, meaning that it's a receptive point. It's responsive mainly to the mediating point, which we will see in a minute. So it's the grounding of the emanating point. And the third point is the synthesis of these two forces, the emanating and the receptive point. Therefore, it is the point of harmony. It's the mediating point. It's neutral. It's neither positive nor negative, but it's a blend of the two. This is primordial in understanding esoteric philosophy. The importance of the trinity of manifestation. In all manifestation, a triangle of force must be created. Two opposing poles, the positive and the negative, or the emanating and the receptive point, and the neutral point. So here we have the healer's soul as the emanating point, then the patient as the receptive point, and the healer being the mediating point. Or the soul group, patients and healers. Or crown as the positive, alta major as the receptive point, and the ajna as the mediating point. And coming down now to the glands, the pineal gland is the emanating or positive point, the carotid gland as the receptive point or negative, and the pituitary body as the mediating point or the point of harmony. So these three, the healer or the healing group, the ajna, and the pituitary body, they all act as mediating points. The three head centers are symbolic of the three aspects of divinity working as one. Crown, ajna, alta major. Pineal gland, pituitary body, carotid gland. First aspect, positive, will aspect. Second aspect, point of harmony between the two. And third aspect, the negative point. And healing is an act of creation or manifestation. The three centers must work as one. So in the work of creation as occultly carried on, all three physical centers have to be utilized. DK tells us in Cosmic Fire. 1. By means of the pineal gland, man ascertains the will and the purpose of the ego, the soul. From thence, he draws the necessary energy from the higher levels via the head center and the Sutratma. 2. By means of the pituitary body, the second element of desire or form building energy becomes available to the healers. And under the law of attraction, he can mold and build in diva substance. And the third point, when the alta major awakes, it is possible for him then to materialize, to ground, to manifest, and activate that desired form which he is in the process of constructing. So if you really want to understand that point, friends, go and consult TCF, page 965. You will find that DK explains it in detail, which means that it is absolutely crucial for us to understand that process. So, it is apparent, therefore, why it is that so few people ever construct thought forms that are of constructive, lasting benefit to humanity. Again, I will reread this quote for you because it's absolutely important that we understand why DK wants us to work as a group. So it is apparent, therefore, why the great ones, hierarchy, in our case, the healing ashram, as they work through their disciples, are forced to work with groups, being seldom able to find a man or a woman whose three physical centers are simultaneously active. They frequently have to work with large groups before the right amount or the quota of energy to step down and to manifest soul energy measures up to what's necessitated. Now, DK wrote this in the 1930s. That doesn't mean that us 80 odd years further, we are much more advanced than people of his time. And usually the head center is the last one to be developed. If we read Dina 2, we will see in a few of his disciples, DK even gives the percentage, and that's just to show you how advanced a master is and his ability to read the aura of disciples. He even gives the percentage of the development of the various chakras. And the head center is usually the least developed. So let's go back now to our triangles. So we need, therefore, to apply these three triangles: the head center, the ajna, and the alta major. Through the chakric triangle, we link up these three head centers, setting up, therefore, a magnetic field. Then we superimpose this this chakric triangle on the gland triangle, which is composed of the pineal gland, pituitary body, and the carotid gland. And when these two have blended and fused, then we place it on the ajna triangle, made up of the ajna, right eye, left eye triangle. And this is what we will be practicing every time that we send healing to anyone. The soul triangle, will, love, intelligence petals, that we superimpose on the chakric triangle, where the attention is placed, where soul energy is tapped and focused, head, ajna, alta major. Blend these two, and then superimpose the blended triangle on the gland triangle, pineal gland, pituitary body, carotid gland, where the magnetic field is spiritually vitalized. That is, soul energy of love is stepped down and it vitalizes the glands, it stimulates it. Then it's superimposed again on the ajna triangle, made up of ajna, right eye, left eye, where then the radiance, the soul energy is then distributed and directed correctly through the medium of the third triangle, which is this triangle, because the ajna is the directing center within the body. So then the soul force of love, or the soul energy, is directed and distributed. So this is what we will be seeing every time we have a session. And then this is our own adaptation. We look up and we see an even larger triangle, which is made up of Christ, Master DK, and the healing devas, whose energy we invoke. And this larger triangle then is blended on our soul triangles, because Christ told us 2000 years ago, when two or more gather in my name, I will be there. So not only to invoke Christ and Master DK is the healing master within the ashram, within the hierarchy rather. Excuse me a minute. But also DK tells us that anyone who works under or in the name of Christ, in the name of love, for hierarchy, selflessly and unconditionally, wanting absolutely nothing in return for ourselves, Christ offers protection. So that's very important for us, that we know that when we work, we are protected. Now, DK tells us this sounds somewhat complicated, but after a little practice, this healing practice of placing, vitalizing, and directing becomes almost instantaneous and automatic. Now we have applied that rule 2 for us, for the healing group. And we have exactly the same principle, except that now we're going to apply it to the group, where we have the will to good, the emanating triangle, placed on the hierarchy triangle, creative placing. Then we have the creating, vitalizing our soul group. And then we place it on the planetary centers. First we invoke the avatar of synthesis, the spirit of peace, and the Buddha. We know that these 3 are supporting the Christ ever since Christ made his decision in 1945 at the June full moon. He made contact with the avatar of synthesis. The spirit of peace came to his help, and of course the Buddha, his brother. These 3, from June onwards, are supporting and powering the Christ right at the center of this triangle. So we invoke that triangle, and then we place it on our soul triangle, the Christ, Master DK, and our soul group here. And then we vitalize the chakric triangle. We made up of our group crown chakra, our group Ajna, and our group Alta Major. And then we place it via our group Ajna, right eye, left eye triangle, on the planetary centers made up of London, New York, and Geneva. Why these 3 cities, you might ask? Because DK tells us that under the plan, under the divine plan, and contingent upon energies pouring through the 5 planetary centers, Tokyo, London, Geneva, New York, and Darjeeling. These 3 planetary chakras, according to divine plan, there are 3 great fusing energies or centers present on our planet. 1, Russia, through Geneva, fusing, blending Eastern Europe and Western Europe and Northern Asia. Via New York, then the United States, and later South America will also become a center, fusing and blending Central and Western Europe and the entire Western Hemisphere. And the third point, the British Empire, fusing, blending races and men throughout the entire world. And DK tells us that in the hands of these 3 nations lies the destiny of the planet. These are the 3 major world blocks from the consciousness angle and from the angle of world synthesis. And as you know, synthesis is the operative word on our planet in particular, even though it is the operative word in the solar system as well. So this is why we chose these 3 points, London, New York, and Darjeeling. So at some other time, we will go through greater detail about these 3 points. But so far, all we need to know is these are the 3 points that we will send the energy to humanity through. So it is with these triangles that the trained healer eventually works. Notice the word here, trained healer. And I keep saying to us, I keep reminding us that we are being trained. We are laying the foundations for future healing groups. We are being trained. So it's these triangles that we must consciously employ. Again, let's look at that operative word here, consciously. It doesn't happen automatically. We have to use them consciously. The time when this will be possible still lies very far ahead, he tells us. But at present, the healer must work through visualization and the power of creative imagination. Again, that sounds like a complicated process when we do this. Group crown chakra, group this and group that, and it could be a little bit complicated. But once we get used to it and we talk you through it, so it's not as if, you've got to remember, because we all do it together and I guide you through it. So that will become automatic and instantaneous. So now we understand why last time at the other session, we said that the magnetic healers of the third seed group will use the head center, the ajna, and the heart center. The heart center because we use the energy of love. So the heart center is involved no matter what. But what's important is the head center and the ajna center. We keep the energy in the head area because otherwise we overstimulate these other centers, which we don't want. And that's it, folks.